Boom. Hey,
This
welcome to
meeting is
another
being
episode.
recorded.
Welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. I'm your host, the Rock Fantasy man, Stephen Keeler. Tonight, we set the time capsule back to 1992. We celebrate two albums making 30 years around the sun. We're going to be talking about Danzig's album, the third album from Danzig, How the Gods Kill, going up against the mighty Black Sabbath with their Dehumanizer. Here's just a little bit about each album. Black Sabbath released Dehumanizer June 22nd of 92, the first to feature Ronnie James Dio in over a decade, and the first to feature in over 9 years to feature the bassist Geezer Butler. It was recorded in Wales at Rockville Studios. It was intended to feature Cozy Powell, but he broke his pelvis in a horse riding incident. Dio initially wanted to replace Cozy with AC/DC drummer Simon Wright, but Butler and Iommi rejected him and recruited Vinny Appice, who, of course, served as Sabbath drummer during most of Dio's previous tenure from the band from 1980 to 82. During the sessions for the album, actually, Tony Martin made a short comeback when he was invited by the band to try the songs out. He stated in a conversation with another ex-Sabbath vocalist, Ian Gillan, that he was never really fired, and Gillan stated neither was he. They joked they should just show up and walk on stage at a gig one day. But, of course, that never happened. But I thought that was an interesting fact. They just said the phones never, they just stopped ringing. So they weren't really fired. So would have been kind of fun to see all of them at once. I probably wouldn't have went over well with maybe one of the other singers. But the album did peak at number 44 on the Billboard 200. Danzig 3, a little bit about that. How the Gods Kill is the third studio album by Danzig, and it was released July 14th, 1992. It was recorded at the record plant in Hollywood on Dehumanizer Records and produced by Danzig and Rick Rubin. The album art, of course, was a 1976 piece by H.R. Geiger. That peaked at number 24 on the Billboard 200. I'm sure that Chris Allo has more information on the Danzig record than I do. I tried to make a few more notes, but and I guess we can get started. That's about what I have in notes. I got a few things to add as it gets to my turn, but we're going to kick things off with Ryan Gavalier. He was on the channel last week. He has a YouTube channel also, and he can tell us a little bit about that. And let's talk about, maybe we'll go with Black Sabbath first, and then we'll go to Danzig, but we'll each talk about each album as it gets to your turn and pick like 3 songs from each and a rating of the album between 1 and 10 or 1 to 100, whatever you prefer. Thanks for joining tonight.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Ryan. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Ryan's Vinyl Destination. I'm also on Facebook with that page and Instagram too. I have written reviews on Facebook and some guitar videos on Instagram too. But yeah, I love both of these albums a lot. Black Sabbath's been one of my favorite bands since I was probably like 12. I don't know. It's been a long time. And I definitely have more history with them than I do Danzig, but I've really liked Danzig too, is the band Danzig, and I also like the Misfits a lot also. But so we'll start off with Black Sabbath. So this one came out in 1992, and it was a really, really heavy album by the band. I mean, the riffs were super crunchy, and great vocals by Dio the entire way through. A lot of really cool songwriting also. I don't think it's a perfect album by any means. Like, there's a lot of Black Sabbath albums I'll go to before this one, but it always is still a fresh one to listen to. My 3 tracks that I chose for this one, number 3 would be Computer God, the opening song. It's super heavy. Dio definitely gives one of the more aggressive vocal performances on this one. He's super growly on it. Works really well with the riffs. It has kind of cool production too. It's super crunchy and loud. Then my number 2 I chose is I. That was the first song I ever heard off of this album. My dad showed me that song when I was really young, as I was just getting into Black Sabbath. I just loved it. It's super, super heavy. It's just a super memorable riff too. Dio gives a really powerful performance. I think that one thing that I have to distinguish with Dio and Black Sabbath versus like Ozzy is that Dio's not as scary of a vocalist as Ozzy can be at times. Like there's times where Ozzy will make your skin crawl with some of his vocal performances, like the Writ, or even certain parts of like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Hole in the Sky, stuff like that. But Dio, I think he's a much more moving vocalist. He has some really beautiful vocal performances, like stuff he did with Rainbow, stuff he did solo, and stuff he did with Black Sabbath. And I think like the chorus on this song is really moving in a way. Like it's still super heavy, but he hits those notes to the point where it kind of gives you a little bit of chills to an extent. And so my number one track on the album kind of goes in that same respect, and that'd be After All. I love this song. It starts with a super, super heavy riff. It sounds like a vintage Sabbath riff, like one of the most classic Sabbath riffs on the album. It could have been on something like Masters of Reality or something like that. I love it. And great verses, super aggressive vocals on that one too. And then I think the chorus is really beautiful on that one. It kind of has like a solemn kind of feel. It's just really awesome stuff. So Danzig 3, a very different album than Dehumanizer, I'll say for sure. I think it's a much more dangerous album. It kind of has like a bluesy feel at times. Definitely a metal feel. I wouldn't say like super punky, but it has like the danger of a punk album to it. And I think that, I love Danzig's gimmick so much, the super heavy music, and he has this voice that like at times he's kind of like channeling like a Jim Morrison kind of vibe. At other times he's going full screaming Jay Hawkins. Other times, he's kind of doing like a Roy Orbison type of thing. And I think it's just like very unique. And I love that about it. And like the riffs on this album are super good. The guitar sounds super dirty and crunchy. I just love it. The songwriting's really interesting too. So for my 3 songs on this one, number 3, I chose Goddess, the opening track. Just because like you go into that, it starts off super fast, heavy, but it goes into that like slower, just like pounding kind of riff, and it just gets so dark. And then he just starts screaming, like not like screaming high notes, but he's just like wailing like a classic like bluesy type of thing. And I think it's kind of funny just thinking about how the levels at the mix must have looked. He must have been way up in the red as he's singing, and they just leave it there because like, this is awesome. Super cool stuff there. Number 2, I chose Do You Wear the Mark? I love that song. It's super heavy. The riff kind of sounds like Into the Void by Black Sabbath. I think it's like the closest relation I saw of Sabbath. That dun it. It sounds just like Into the Void. So I really like that a lot. Just a super cool song. And then my number 1 I chose on this, probably a little bit of an unconventional choice, but Sistina's. Softest song on the album for sure. He definitely channels like a full Roy Orbison type of thing over this like kind of like dreamy, like synthy type sounding thing. It's like a weird like dream pop type of song on a heavy metal album. So I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of shows like his full range as a vocalist and as a musician. If I'm going to choose between these 2 albums, I think I am going to choose Danzig 3.
Okay.
Just because, like I said, I think it's a bit more dangerous of an album. It's a little more raw. I think that when I look at Dehumanizer, it's not my favorite of the Dio Sabbath albums. I mean, that's Mob Rules for sure, but like still a really solid album. And if I had to rate both of them, I'd probably say like an 8.5 for Danzig 3, and then like a 7.5 for Dehumanizer.
Cool. I think you've got the same favorite Black Sabbath album as Mr. Chris Allo actually does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mine as well.
Dio one.
I'm here.
All-time favorite.
Also, before I go on to the next guest, I want to wish a very happy birthday to Mr. Tony Dio. It's
Absolutely.
Dio's
Happy birthday.
birthday. It's
Happy birthday.
Tony Dio's
Happy
birthday.
Tony.
I
Have a
didn't
good
bring a
one.
Yeah.
cupcake or a birthday cake, but I will hold up a lighter for you. You can try to blow it out if you want.
That's good
for your
enough.
wish. But you know, he contacted me over the weekend, and he was talking about, you know, what ideas you have for a show, and I said, well, it's your birthday one, so you're not want to hang out with us on here. And he's like, nah, I was doing my partying on Saturday at a gig, and I'd love to do. And he mentioned this episode, and I said, well, I won't do it unless Chris Al is available. So Chris said, yep, I could do it, and here we are. And I'd like to thank everybody for giving their time to the channel tonight. And I know Chris has to go before 8, so I will have him go, but I'm going to make one more person go before him. And I'm going to reach over to our birthday boy, and we will go to Mr. Tony Dio. And happy birthday, Tony Dio.
Hey, good to spend a birthday with you guys.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
So we'll go with so we're gonna go with Sabbath first, I guess.
Yeah.
So Dehumanizer, great album. I love this album. I was very happy when it first came out to know that Dio had gotten back with Sabbath, because like I said, that's my favorite era of Sabbath is the Dio years. And I thought it was a solid record. I actually grew to like it a lot more in recent years than I actually did when it first came out. I guess because there was so much cool stuff coming out at that time. Even though I did enjoy it, it just kind of got buried beneath everything else that was coming out in '92 as well. So much stuff coming out at that time that I was into. But it's a really good album, and very, you know, just solid performance from everybody on it. You know, it would have been neat to had Cozy Powell involved. Chris, do you have the bootlegs of the
Yeah, it's that
demos,
the 4-disc.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the 3-disc version. It's like all the demos and so forth from it.
It's got
And
Bad
it's
Blood
cozy.
and
Yeah, Bad Blood and The Next Time are two
Yep.
songs that didn't make it.
which are
Which
great
is
songs.
Kind of good songs. They did this deluxe reissue on CD and the vinyl. Not sure why they didn't dig those songs
That's
out and try to clean
Yeah,
them up.
right. Exactly. That's
That's what you want for bonus tracks instead of live numbers. Really,
what was that piece that you and Chris have? Because I'm not too familiar with what you held up.
It's a bootleg.
I was gonna say it had to be a bootleg because I don't remember selling that ever. Yeah.
It's three CDs, and it's all these instrumental demos, but there's some stuff with vocals on it. Cozy Powell's on it. Cozy Powell's a drummer on the whole thing. It was supposedly a bunch of Cozy's demos got out after he passed.
Yeah, the story.
Michael Schenker demos and some.
The story
Rainbow
was, yeah,
demos and stuff
Yngwie
that got out.
Malmsteen too. The story was after Cozy tragically died, his girlfriend had all these cassette tapes, and she sold them to somebody, I believe it was in Japan, who made bootleg CDs of all this stuff. Michael Schenker, Yngwie Malmsteen, Black Sabbath, and all this stuff came out, which, thankfully it's out there.
Yeah.
Did
A lot
Tony
of it's on
Martin was
YouTube.
Tony Martin on any of those tracks? 'Cause
No,
he said-
none of the Tony Martin demos.
Okay.
And I would love to hear what he did, because I've always been curious to know did he go in and recut Dio's vocals and sing what Dio sang, or because Dio wrote the majority of the lyrics. Now there's a couple songs on here like I think what was it, Master of Insanity, that Geezer wrote, because he did
Right.
that song in his Geezer Butler solo band like in the late 80s.
Mm.
But his
Yeah, very
version is
different,
on here, is on those demos as well, and it sounds nothing like the same song, really. I mean, it's more commercial sounding. But like I said, it's a great record. If I had to pick 3 songs from it, I love Letters from Earth. That's a great song, and there's an alternate version of that song that you actually get. They did include that as a bonus track. It was a B-side to the TV Crimes single, and so there's, like I said, alternate lyrics on it. It's funny, I have a friend that's a big Sabbath fan, and he met Dio once, and he was talking to him about the alternate lyrics in Letters from Earth, and Dio said, there's no alternate lyrics, there's only one version. He goes, I knew he was wrong, but I'm not going to argue with the man. He said, but I knew yes, there is, but I'm not going to argue with him. I love the song TV Crimes. TV Crimes it's just a hard driving, fast number. Just probably the most kick-ass song on the record, actually. And my favorite song would be After All, The Dead. I mean, it's such a just a heavy song, and I love the lyrics where he says, "What do you say to the dead? You know, will you forgive me for living?" And it's just really deep. You know, you think about if you met a zombie and he's coming after you, what are you going to say to him? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love every song on the album. Probably the weakest track is probably "It's Too Late," and that one even kicks ass. I mean, that just goes into a kick-ass song. By the end, it starts off kind of slow, like some of the slower later Dio era stuff. You know, that stuff more like he did in his last years, but it kicks ass at the end. And the production's great on it. You know, you got Mac from Queen did the production on it. It's really good album. I would give Dehumanizer a 9 out of 10. It's up high on my Sabbath list as well. As far as the Danzig 3 goes, great album cover, which when you compare it to album covers, I mean the Sabbath is a little cartoony, but it's cool. I would have really liked to see what the artist that did Mob Rules or somebody did a take on that. I think it would have been really cool because it's very cartoonish looking. But you got the H.R. Geiger, you just can't compete with that on for the album covers here and between the two for album art. I thought Danzig 3 was a solid album. I liked it a lot when it first came out, but I don't go back and revisit it a whole lot. It's got great riffs from John Christ on it, but a lot of the songs kind of sound like improv jams, almost like they were creating in the studio as they went. It's got a very live sound about it, which the first Danzig album is very live sounding. I mean, that's what I want a kick drum to sound like, is Chuck Biscuit's foot on that, on that first album. And this album's got good production as well, but it's very live sounding. And like I said, it seems like they were just kind of coming up with a lot of stuff. And Glenn is repeating a lot of words, a lot of lyrics over and over, and he's doing a lot of wailing and stuff. It just doesn't seem as together as those first two albums were. When I look back at it now, I listened to it twice today at work, and my coworker, he's 25 years old. He's into metal, but I'm turning them on to a lot of stuff. He knows about Danzig. He goes, "Who let Danzig record this?" And he heard him, he just didn't dig it at all. But I was like, "Nah, man, you gotta listen to more of it. It's got some good stuff." And like I said, John Christ comes up with some great riffs on there for sure. Heart of the Devil was a cool song. I think Willie Dixon was supposed to be on it originally or something, and they said that, did he pass away before it happened? But I remember reading something like Hit Parade or something years back about the making of that record. And for songs, favorite 3 songs would be Left Hand Black for sure. That's just a great one. Do You Wear the Mark? And I gotta go. I was really torn about which one I really like. I really like Dirty Black Summer. It's just a cool song. It's got a great riff to it. There's the cover for that. I actually H.R. Geiger did a takeoff of, he did his own version of the Danzig Skull here. So that's pretty cool. But it's a cool song. It was a cool riff. I did see him on that tour when they toured. It was Danzig and Sacred Reich and the Jenna Torturers.
Wow.
And so like I said, I like the album, but I would probably give it I'd go as say a 6 out of 10. I like about, half of it. Some of it I was like, I could skip a few songs on it. It seems like that's just the way it went. That first album was so great. I really loved the second album, and then it kind of started going downhill a little bit. By Danzig 4, they had gone kind of slow and proggy almost on that one. And then, of course, that band imploded, and Danzig went into a different world, industrial type stuff and all, which I never really got into. So picking between the two, I've got to go with Dehumanizer for the win.
Well, Dio votes for Dio. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. Now, if it was going up against that first Danzig album, I might have to rethink that.
Yeah. So cool. Well, happy birthday again. And we're going to move over to Mr. Chris Allo, the mighty Chris Allo, as he's known in the world of Hammer King.
You are too funny, Steve. Well, thanks for having me. Happy birthday, Tony. Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Steve.
Thanks for joining.
Sure. Yeah, two of my favorite bands. These are my top 2 favorite records from 1992. I'm a huge Sabbath fan, huge Danzig fan. I got the Sam Hain Danzig tattoo on my arm. Yeah, these are both great records. I re-listened to them again for, I don't know, the millionth time, just to, since we were kind of pitting them against each other, and it's a tough fight. I really like Dehumanizer. My three favorite tracks on the album, I think, are Time Machine. I thought it was cool how they had the two versions, one on the Wayne's World soundtrack,
Yes.
which was the first single released, similar to how they had two versions for Mob Rules, one on the heavy metal soundtrack, one's on the actual album. They did the same thing with this. I really like Too Late. It's definitely a deeper cut, but it's got that real dynamic that Tony Iommi loves, the light side and the heavier side. And I love the closing track, Buried Alive. It's super heavy. I know at the time that was Vinny Appice's favorite track on the record. I saw Sabbath 5 times on the Dehumanizer tour,
Wow.
including seeing them at the Hammersmith Odeon in England. And I interviewed Geezer Butler and Vinny Appice backstage. And I saw Danzig twice on the Danzig 3 tour. They did 6 dates together in 1992. And the closest that they came to me was Cleveland, Ohio. So me and a buddy drove out to Cleveland, Ohio to see Danzig open for Black Sabbath on July 31st, 1992, which was awesome. That was like a dream show for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and what else? Yeah, the Danzig 3 record, I really dig it. My favorite tracks, I think, are Dirty Black Summer, Left Hand Black, and Do You Wear the Mark? I remember meeting Eerie Von the year after this record came out when they were still touring for Danzig 3, and I showed him my tattoo, and he was like, "Oh, dude, you wear the mark." And I thought that was funny. But yeah, these both records are killer. The one song I really don't like on Danzig 3, even though it's got a great vocal, Sistinus, I just don't really care for it. He's got that awesome Elvis thing going on, but it's just not my thing. But I know Tony just said he loved it. I hate the song TV Crimes off Dehumanizer. I always fucking skip that.
Really?
I just can't stand it. I don't know. I remember thinking, once I heard the whole record, I just thought that this was a bad idea for a single. I thought the video was terrible.
Yeah,
They must not listen. Sabbath must not have liked it, because when they went out on the road, they played this song in South America, and then I think they played it the first U.S. date in Florida, and then dropped it and never played it again. So Sabbath as a band must not have liked it. I know they did not like doing the video, because when I interviewed Geezer and Vinny, they were like, "Yeah, we shot the video in L.A. during the L.A. riots."
Wow.
The whole Rodney King LA riots. So they were like, they had a security team, and they had to be, they were like, buildings were getting blown up around us, and we're shooting a stupid video, hoping that we're not. Yeah, hoping that
like
we're
a
not
suicidal tendencies video.
Yeah. I didn't like it. I still don't like it. But yeah, they both sound really good. I don't know if you want me to tell my Sabbath Danzig story.
Please do.
Yes.
You've told it on the Sea of Tranquility. So
okay. All right. Well, I will mention here. Like I said, I saw Sabbath 5 times on Dehumanizer. So one of the times was I did 2 shows in England. When I got to England, I was doing college radio. This was actually before I was doing the magazine work. And ironically, I kept trying to interview Danzig for this record, and the guys at Deaf American were really cool. They kept giving me the free tickets and even passes, but I just couldn't get the interview. But I did get an interview with Sabbath. I called up, spoke to Gloria Butler, and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming to the Hammersmith Odeon," and she's like, Hammersmith is so busy with press." She's like, "Come the next night also, and I'll give you free tickets and passes." So they played this Mayflower Theater, which is maybe a 4,000 or 5,000 seater. Interviewed Geezer and Vinny. They were super cool. And, I sat down with them. They signed my shit. I interviewed them for about half an hour. And as I'm packing up the, my shit, the tape recorder and all, Vinny goes, "Oh, so you've seen the show already?" And I'm like, "Yeah, tonight's my 4th time." And I was like, oh, I'm a big Danzig fan. And I was like, I had driven, I drove like 10 hours to see you guys in Cleveland, Ohio, Sabbath and Danzig. And Geezer and Vinny looked at each other like, oh, that fucking guy. And I was like, oh, geez, like what happened? And Geezer's like, oh, he was just a nightmare to be on the road with us. He was like trashing, dressing rooms and knocking holes in walls. And he's like, I'm glad we were only doing like 6 or 7 dates with him. They were like, if we would have kept on the road with him, we would have had to throw him off the tour.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that's crazy. And Vinny's like, yeah, he was drilling holes in the locker room, the dressing room. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, I think he wanted to spy on us. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Now, again, I don't know if this was legit. He was just pulling my leg. But Geezer Butler turns to me and he goes, yeah. He goes, Danzig asked me for my underpants one night. I was like, what? Now, I had already turned the tape recorder off. So I was like, oh, fuck, I wish I was still taping it. But I was like, wow. I was like, I didn't know what to say to him. So I just look at the two of them and I'm like, maybe he wanted to sell him? And without missing a beat, Vinny Appice goes, sell him? He goes, I think he wanted to smell him. I was just like, all right. And with that, somebody came out from the back and they were like, guys, you're on in 10 minutes. So I was like, all right, thanks a lot. I packed up my stuff and went and watched the show. So, I really don't know what went on between Danzig and Black Sabbath, but that was as far as I know, the only time the two bands were ever on the same bill. It was like 6 dates in 1992. And that was it. But yeah, 2 great records. I think if I got to give them both a number, man, I love Danzig 3, but not as much as Danzig 1 and 2. I love Dehumanizer, but not as much as Heaven of Hell and Mob Rules. But I think I'm gonna give Dehumanizer a 9, and I'm gonna give Danzig 3 an 8. If I had to pick one over the other, I think I'm gonna pick Dehumanizer over Danzig 3. As much as I love it, just Dehumanizer. If I'm only gonna listen to one, that's the one I'm gonna listen to.
Cool.
So that's my pick there, Steve.
Well, thanks for joining. That's a crazy story, and
true story.
I know. I think, it's just crazy.
Again, I don't know if they were pulling my chain. I don't know if they were just
with the British humor or whatever. Right?
Maybe they were just pissed at Danzig and they were hoping I was going to talk about this because I wasn't writing yet for magazines. So maybe they were just hoping I was going to talk about it on the air. I don't know, but it was weird. It was just really weird. And I've done hundreds, if not 1,000 interviews with rock bands. And I can't remember another story where like one band so much was saying something that weird about another band.
I'm gonna pull a Hudson Valley Squares. We have a representative from Glenn Danzig on line 2.
Right. Yeah.
Chris Allo.
And I've interviewed Danzig since then, but I never brought it up. I've interviewed both Geezer and Vinny multiple times since then. I never brought it up. Maybe I should have. But
tough subject. Maybe we shouldn't have brought it up tonight even.
Who knows?
All righty. So who else do we have in the room tonight? We got John and Johnny Cavaluzzi, who were longtime customers of Rock Fantasy that moved down to North Carolina, down by Tony Dio. So we've got them. We've got Ove here all the way from Norway. And we've got Myles from Louisiana. We got Count Ralphus, of course, also here from our local, I'd say, metal historian on the show. And I think I'm going to jump over to the Cavaluzzis, and we've got the youngest member to ever appear on Rock Fantasy Files. He's back for a second round. He was here a couple weeks ago. Do you guys want to, are you guys going to combine both your picks together down there? We'll just knock your square off together.
We have different ones, so I'll go quick and then he can do his.
Okay, great.
So I actually saw Sabbath on this tour up in Albany at the Palace Theater. I think Exodus opened up. I'm not even sure. I don't really remember a lot, but it seemed like a great show from what I remember. Anyway, I give both the albums, I know it sounds dumb, an 8 out of 10. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Danzig, just because I don't know. I think it's just really real different, real cool. I love it. I love the whole thing. I love both of them, but I really like that one. I think it's a little more experimental than the first two. As far as the songs for that one, I would have to go with for Danzig, Godless, Do You Wear the Mark, and Left Hand Black.
Okay.
I really like almost every song on there. I'm not a big fan of the last song, but it's a solid album. It must be solid because I really didn't listen to a lot of his stuff until probably like 2004 again. I really didn't listen to a bunch. So, and as far as the Black Sabbath, it's great. I would have to go with After All, I and Buried Alive is my favorite on there. I think that song is tremendous. Kind of reminds me of Zero the Hero a little bit. Has a little bit of that kind of groove to it. Anyway, I think they're both fantastic, but if I was going to pick one, I'd go with Danzig.
Cool. So we got a tie. Danzig 2, Sabbath 2 going into John Jr.'s here.
I personally like the Danzig more. I would give the Danzig an 8, and I would give Sabbath a 7. For my Sabbath picks, Computer God, Time Machine, and personally I is my favorite on that album. And for Danzig, my favorite is Dirty Black Summer and Left Hand Black and Godless.
All right. So boy, Danzig is stretching out and taking the lead here over Black Sabbath. Going a little bit of surprise in my mind. How about we go all the way from North Carolina across the big pond over into Norway and talk to Ove. Ove, welcome. Glad you could stay up. The guy stays up all night to hang out. He's staying up all night for Tony Dio's birthday.
Nice. That's dedication.
Yep. Yeah. Black Sabbath, I gotta say, it's not an album I have listened much to. It's just recently I really have listened to the album. I kind of stick to the 70s and Mob Rules and stuff. But I listen like for this last week and some before because it's been talked about so much at Sea of Tranquility and stuff. So I decided to do Buried Alive number 3 and Too Late number 2 and Letters from Earth number 1.
Okay.
I just got a fresh impression of the album because I haven't really heard it before.
All right.
But Dancing, on the other hand, I got Danzig through Demon Spit Live. Was my first Danzig. I don't know if those 3 songs was recorded at the same time as How the Gods Kill, but I really like those 3 studio tracks.
Yeah, good.
And I got the Lucifuge, and I got this one, number 3, after that. And this was back in 94, 95, I believe. I was like 13, so it's been with me for a long, long time. I really like this album. It has like organic feel, like others have been talking about. It's like it's almost like alive in a way. So for number 3, I did take Do You Wear the Mark, and number 2, How the Gods Kill. I just love that track. It's just it's powerful. And for number 1, I did Anything.
Okay.
I just like that opening riff, and I like in the end when that chorus guitar goes over at the end. It's just, I really like it. So I'll give Black Sabbath like 7 out of 10. I just don't have any history with it. Danzig, I will give 9 out of 10 because it's just prime stuff. So Danzig for me because I got the history.
All right. So Danzig is really pulling out a lead here, 4-2 right now. And well, I guess we're going to move over. I'm going to move over to Myles down in Louisiana. We're popping all over the earth right now. Letters from Earth, Rock Fantasy Files Around the Earth. And we're back to Louisiana from Norway. And Myles, welcome. And we'll head over to Ralph and I'll finish it up and we'll see if Black Sabbath can reel the Danzig back in, Mr. Glenn Danzig.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just like the last battle I was on, this one was tough. This one was probably tougher than the last one because both of these albums have been in my constant rotation for a long time, even to this day. Two of my favorite albums from the band, from both these bands. I really do love How the Gods Kill and Dehumanizer. I know off the record, I was telling Steve and them how much I really did like this record. And I'm a real big fan of the Dio stuff with Sabbath. My favorite Sabbath record since I was a kid was Mob Rules. And I just love Dio with Sabbath. So going into Sabbath first, I feel like people maybe my age, since I'm a little bit younger, really overlook this album and how aggressive it is, because this album is probably the heaviest album I can think that Black Sabbath has put out. And I've listened to all their stuff. Ronnie James Dio has the most aggressive vocals on here. And I love his stuff, but this is like aggressive vocals coming from him. It just seems like he wanted to be mean on this album. I love Geezer Butler's bass on here. It sounds really awesome, especially whenever it's prominent in the mix and you can hear it. It just sounds so sick. And Vinny Appice's drum work on here, he's just smacking them drums around. Like I said, one of the heaviest Sabbath albums. If you want to listen to it, anybody out there, Letters from Earth gives you everything you need to know about this album. Only one gripe I have about this album, and I really never noticed it until doing this episode, was that in some songs, I think Dio's vocals just sound like kind of back there in the mix. Like some songs I hear, it just seems like his vocals are not as up there in the mix like some other songs. And I don't know, maybe he was not trying to piss Tony off again like he did on Mob Rules. But Danzig 3, it's definitely one of my favorite Danzig albums. I always struggle whether to put, the debut or this one at number 2, because really ain't nothing gonna top this to me. I love this album. And it's maybe a little bit darker than the other albums, a little bit more maybe experimental than the first 2 albums. I think Glenn Danzig sounds really good on this record. And if you listen to anything, I think that his vocal work on that song sounds really good. The only one time I think that he kind of goes a little bit overboard was on the song Bodies. I kind of feel like his vocals on there, he was trying to do a little bit too much. But one complaint I have about this album is just the song Sustain Us or whatever it is. I fucking hate this song. I don't like it. I'm so glad that I got the CD and I can just skip over it because this whole album to me kicks ass. And even going back when I had to listen to this album, I knew this song was coming up and I haven't heard it in forever. And I made myself listen to it for this. And I was just like, holy shit, this fucking song sucks. And it sucks. I'm sorry. It sucks. I don't, Glenn, he sounds all right in it, but the guitar, little ding, ding. And John Christ sounds awesome throughout the whole record. He sounds awesome. Chuck Biscuit's drums sound so awesome, but this song on this record, I don't like it. 3 songs on Dehumanizer I would pick. Computer God, the opening track, very strong opening track. Letters from Earth, just that, it's like a sludgy, heavy song. And then is my favorite song off of here. It's one of my favorite Sabbath songs of all time. For Danzig, I'm gonna go with the title track. I really do enjoy that track. It's really awesome. Anything, I'm gonna put at number 2, and I'm gonna pull a Ralph, and I tied 2 at number 1. I put Left Hand Black and Do You Wear the Mark. Those 2 songs to me kick so much ass. And when Danzig says devil on my left, angel on my right, there's no mistake of who I'm choosing tonight. I just thought that was so cool. I always thought since I was young, like Danzig was one of the coolest people on earth. Like seeing pictures of him on stage with his shirt off with his black hair and that chain he had on. I just thought he was so cool when I was younger. Rating the albums, initially I gave both of them. Well, initially I gave Sabbath a 8 out of 10, and I gave Danzig a 9 out of 10 to give Danzig the win. But man, I just can't forgive Sustain Us, man. I just can't. And going back and thinking about it, I can skip Sustain Us on this record, but out of this whole record, I won't skip any of these songs.
Okay.
So that brings it down. Danzig, I'm gonna give an 8 out of 10, and I'm gonna bring Sabbath up to 8.5 out of 10, and I'm gonna go with Dehumanizer.
All right. Black Sabbath is back, mathematically alive still.
If
here.
If Dehumanizer was going up against this, it would be no question.
Okay.
Yeah. I said that with the first one too. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna bop over to Ralph, who has the coolest backdrop every week on this show. He goes out and finds all his collectible stuff, and here he is, Ralph Tambora. Let's hear what you've got to say. We're gonna pass the record album over to you, man.
All right. Let's start off with the Danzig. I got Godless at number 3. How the Gods Kill at number 2. On the album, Left Hand Black. I got Chris probably has this, I'm sure, but this weird little box set, that limited edition box set that came out.
That is so cool.
I meant to say
That is awesome.
that I actually didn't get that. Was super limited. I didn't get it in the original run, but like 10 years later, I actually bought it for like $10 at Rock Fantasy.
Wow.
That
It's
was
worth like
laying
$300.
around my store for a long time. Somebody brought it back in a collection. I've seen it not too long ago there again.
I've seen them going for like $300.
I was gonna say I definitely bought one from you, Steve. It was like $10.
You owe me $290, Chris.
Chris, we have talked about this before, remember?
Yes, Steve has some great stuff at Rock Fantasy.
Yeah, I guess Chris is going to buy me some front row seats to a show later this summer. I guess. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, it came with the alternate cover, which is just a little clip from the full cover, which is I got here is the gatefold up here on vinyl. It just came with the 1-song video, only 6 minutes long. They made a video tape for it, but then I got the original, the original. I think I got it on cassette someplace too. But yeah, so I'll give that I'm gonna rate that an 8. And then for Black Sabbath, I got my Dehumanizer on vinyl signed by Vinny. Got the CD here. I gotta say, when this album came out, there wasn't much traditional kind of metal I was even caring about at all. I was so immersed in underground death metal, but when I found out Dio was back, I ran right out and bought it right away. But when he came on tour, pre-internet, I just didn't hear about it. I could have seen him 5 times. Like John seen him. I regretted so bad when I heard that he came through, and I thought, man. And then when he left the band again, I was like, oh my God, I missed my chance to see this lineup, and it really killed me. And then years later, thank God they got back together, and I seen him every time I could once they got back together. But I gotta say, I love TV Crimes. I get that you hate the video, but I thought that was such a great rocking song. I'm gonna go with Too Late for number 3. Then After All the Dead at number 2, and number 1, I'm gonna go with Computer God. And I'm gonna give this rating a 9. I think Dio's in his prime on this album, and it's such an underrated album, overlooked album because of the time that it came out and stuff. But I never get tired of going back to this album. I love the production on it and everything. And I'm going to give Sabbath the win on this. And I think that Danzig, to me, it's the last real classic Danzig album.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
But I still got to go with Dio with Sabbath.
All right. Well, wow, we've had Black Sabbath make a bit of a comeback here. And it looks like, due to my math, as I'm adding up, I'm going to be the tiebreaker, which is
Again,
it happened a couple weeks ago on an album
Yeah.
war we did, once or twice at least. I've got fond memories of both of these records. I was lucky enough to see the Dehumanizer tour in New York City. I believe it was at the Beacon Theater, and I guess Exodus did open for that tour. I don't remember.
Yeah, they played the Beacon twice.
Yeah, I got to see them once. I was up. I remember
this-
being up in the bleachers. I think you were probably there, Chris.
Yeah, the first leg was Prong. Well, the first leg on the Dehumanizer tour was Danzig for 7 dates, and then I believe it was Prong did the next 7, and then came back in the fall, and they had a band from Europe called Skew Siskin. It was a female fronted European metal band. They opened, and then Exodus was the middle act, and then Sabbath, and they played the Beacon Theater in New York City twice, once on the first short leg, and then once on the fuller leg, which was in the fall.
So I could have seen them with Prong, you're saying, or I could have saw them with the Exodus.
Well, if you saw them with Exodus, that was definitely the second leg.
I don't remember exactly because I was hazy. I might even got there very late and, would travel to get there. I don't really remember. But anyhow, I did get to see that tour. And if we're talking about Black Sabbath first, this album, I think, is one of the most underrated Black Sabbath albums. I would say could be one of the heaviest Black Sabbath albums also, along with Born Again. I still find Born Again with Gillan to be one of the most evil Black Sabbath record, even more evil than like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I like the whole Black Sabbath catalog. I do lean a little bit more towards Ozzy material as I've gotten older. There was a time where I was totally thought the Dio was better, but I lived through the whole time. I saw, I was there when Dio joined the band. I was there through I've seen every vocalist with Black Sabbath. I think Chris has too, except I never saw Ray Gillan sing for them. I saw Glenn Hughes, but anyhow, my 3 picks from Black Sabbath, I'm going to go with Letters for Earth. I'm going to go with Time Machine. And I was going to mention, but Chris already did, about how that was a Wayne's World song, and love the Wayne's World movies. People say I look like Garth, so maybe I don't anymore. I'm getting older, but Garth's getting older too. So, and I think it's one of the best Black Sabbath songs ever. That song is so heavy, and how I'm a monster, and he's just going to rip your head off and ask questions later. It's such a strong Black Sabbath song. As we move over to the Danzig record, I had not listened to this record in years. And I find that a lot with a lot of these things I do on this channel and on the Sea of Tranquility also. Sometimes you get a homework. I mean, it's not a bad album. I like the album a lot, but just because you're always consuming new music, especially someone like me or Chris or someone that's in this business or a record store, and you're constantly getting new releases every year and you're listening, and sometimes you just don't pick it up for a long time. I don't have a physical copy of this. I don't have it on vinyl. I can't imagine what the vinyl goes for. If you have the vinyl copy of this, it's probably a couple $100, right? Especially in this day and age right now. But I revisited this. How much is it, Tony?
I said my copy is an unofficial copy, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I've got an original Danzig 4, and it sells for like $250.
Because this was released in an area where vinyl was not really popular in the early 90s. It was kind of being phased out, but I can't imagine if there's original copies out there that are going for an arm and a leg, per se.
Yeah.
But my Danzig picks, like I said, I listened to this and I remember it coming out. It came out in July, and I can remember playing that all summer, and especially the song Dirty Black Summer. It went with a hot, humid, New York summer, and listening to this album over and over. But as I go back and visited, I really liked the song Bodies, maybe because, Myles said he was really going over the top. I think it's a great song. I was listening to that earlier today and just going through the album and seeing what picked up on my ears. How the Gods Kill is epic. It's heavy. Love that. I guess my third pick out of the album would be Left Hand Black. I'd give the album a good 8.5 out of 10. I guess I'm going with my boys, Black Sabbath, though, for the win. I'm giving that pretty close to a 10 of 10. I'm glad Dio came back. I love Tony Martin. In fact, today on Facebook, even though I've known Chris Allo for probably 30 some years, Facebook said we've been friends for 12. And in the picture was a picture of a cheesesteak place we used to frequent in Philadelphia. And then a picture of Chris with Tony Martin when Tony Martin came to Middletown and played this little neighborhood bar several years back. And it was pretty cool that we did the show. And I think Dio did real justice to this album. And it's a shame we didn't get another Black Sabbath out of him with the Dio right around that time period. But a lot of people think that the next Dio album was kind of some left over of some of the energy from this Black Sabbath record. So this Black Sabbath for the win tonight in a very close combated battle of 1992. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And please, the viewers, put in your point of view in the comments and pick out what one you like better. And I hope we didn't talk too bad about Mr. Glenn Danzig, the rock icon with these crazy stories that Chris had.
I still think you're cool, Glenn Danzig. I still think you're cool.
I will add, Glenn Danzig gets a lot of bad rap about a lot of things, but he is very fan friendly at a lot of his shows. He will come out and sit on the bus in the doorway. I've seen him numerous times sit and sign autographs for hours after a show for fans, just like Ronnie James Dio used to do the same. And Ronnie didn't charge you for a meet and greet. He wanted to come out and talk to everyone afterwards as much as he could. I've seen
Ralph showing his autograph wares. And I got to wonder how many times Chris Allo has seen Glenn Danzig perform between Danzig solo and Misfits.
And Sam Hain.
Yes. And Sam Hain. I really like Sam.
It's in the upper 40s.
Okay.
Between the three acts.
Because you've been chasing the Misfits reunion tours, I know, all around the country.
And I'm planning on flying again to Chicago in September for another Misfits reunion gig. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. I hope I did okay. I hope I had some technical issues. I almost said technical ecstasy because we were talking about Black Sabbath, but my little dog, which you see, chewed up my headphones, and luckily I had another pair laying around. I wouldn't have been able to do the show. I wouldn't be able to hear anyone, at least. Anyhow, anybody got a last word to add, Chris?
Yeah, you can't go wrong with either record. If these are both two killer records, this was a tough one. This was,
it was tougher than I thought originally.
Yeah.
This was tougher than the Cannibal Corpse and Immolation one for me, because I really do love both records. Yeah. If it wasn't for Sustain Us, maybe I think Danzig would have took it for me, but that
one song ruined it for you. We hear that some weeks, and what some people say that just one song, and
it just took me out of that record so much, because the record, just that whole record kicks so much ass to me, and then that one song is just like, thank God I got it on CD because I could just skip it. But everything else is awesome.
So, Chris, what do you got going on some of your channels there, Chris? You got the Sea of Tranquility with the Monsters Den coming up,
yes,
I guess.
I got the Monsters Den tomorrow, where Pete Pardo and myself are going to discuss the legendary career of Spanish film horror icon Paul Naschy. I've been rewatching Paul Naschy films for weeks, and they're a bit scrambled in my head. But that's the next one. And then Monday on the Hudson Valley Squares, we're doing another album war similar to this. It's Danzig 3 versus Alice in Chains Dirt.
Wow. Ooh. Yeah. So every Monday on the Sea of Tranquility, you can usually find me or Chris on that channel. And Ryan, what do you got going on in your channel before we wrap this up?
So actually just today I recorded an episode with Rand Kelly. We did episode 2 of this Genesis mini series we're doing. We're going through the whole entire discography, talking about them mostly in pairs, although we're going to do like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway on one episode and etc. But yeah, so today we talked about Nursery Crime and Foxtrot, which are 2 of my favorite Genesis albums. And then other than that, just put out a review on the new Scorpions album like a week ago. Had a couple couple guys that I do the Contrarians with on that one. And then, yeah, I'm just doing a lot of writing too on the Facebook page
Nice.
as well. Yeah, I just did one on Meliora by Ghost because I binged the whole Ghost catalog before I put on
Okay.
the new one because I wanted to hear them all again before I heard that new record. And
Cool.
so, yeah.
All right. Myles, anything going on your channel? You're still kind of quiet.
Yeah, whenever I with work and everything being so crazy, and
Okay.
you know, when I'm trying to get back into it, I actually have like ideas written down on what I wanted to do. My top 10 favorite typo negative songs.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm trying to get that one
Cool.
recorded and stuff. And then I want to rank the Death albums.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
I almost have all of them on
Mm,
I have almost all of them on vinyl, so I
cool.
want to get
Cool.
those. Which
All right. So please, viewers, take a moment to hit like and subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing in this crazy world we're living in. And we're trying to talk music and talk some positivity and not talk about everything else. So stay heavy, dang, and we'll see you next time.